Hello and welcome to my presentation on Merce Cunningham. Today we will be looking at who Merce Cunningham was, his connections with Martha Graham herself, Cunningham technique, two of Cunningham's works and his connections with John Cage. We will also be looking at how inspirational Merce Cunningham truly is. Starting off with who Merce Cunningham was, he was born on April 16, 1919 and died on July 26, 2009. He was originally born in Centralia, Washington, but died in New York. He was an American choreographer and dancer who developed abstract dance, creating his own technique and company known as the Merce Cunningham Dance Company. He was also considered to be the most influential choreographer of the 20th century, making him one of the most well-known dance artists to this date, with students still studying his work. He firstly began by wanting to be an actor and studying at the Cornish School of Arts in Seattle. The school introduced Cunningham to modern dance through the teachings of Bonnie Bird. Leading us on to his connections with Martha Graham. Martha Graham was an influential American dancer, teacher, and choreographer of modern dance whose ballets and other works were intended to reveal the inner man. It was Martha Graham who gave Merce Cunningham his first professional job as the role of acrobat in Every Soul is a Circus, made in 1939. Cunningham was only 20 years old. Martha Graham invited Merce Cunningham to join her company in 1939, where she would make him a soloist and lead dancer in most of her performances through choreographies. Merce Cunningham later left her company in 1953 to move on and explore outside of Martha Graham by creating his own company in the same year, known as the Merce Cunningham Dance Company, followed by creating his own technique, known as the Merce Cunningham Technique. Moving on to talk about Martha Graham technique, we have a video demonstrating her technique.
Sound one, real one, part one. Let's try. This shows the magical first equipment of a dancer, the lovely straight back, the pliable body, and it's what is known as a contraction, and out of it a stretch into a release. The contractions and release are simply the dramatization in body form of the process of breathing. It's the first and the last thing we do. The contraction is letting the breath out, this is taking the breath in, and the contraction is letting the breath out. While it is not used exactly on... This is called the knee vibration. In reality, it is a rond de jambe. It is taken on the floor as well as with one leg in the air. This is the rond de jambe, the leg, the closed position, the open position, the closed, the open, and the attitude. And you hold as far as you can. This is taken at speed. It's used in many contexts. It can have many meanings. It can have the meaning of joy. It can have the meaning of anger. It can have the meaning of frustration.
In this video, we can see that the Graham technique is a progression of ballet with flat backs, rond de jambes and very swift movements with no sudden stopping. The video shows how her dancers are trained to be strong and sustain and control their movements. However, Graham also experimented endlessly with basic human movement, beginning with the most elemental movements of contraction and release, with a big contrast, the video we have just watched. Her choreography explored the depths of human emotion by accentuating their movements. For example, she would put sharp, angular, and direct movements in her choreography. In any choreography she did, the dance was forever altered by her vision. Similarly, The Graham technique links to the Cunningham technique This is because the Cunningham upper back movements look very similar to the small pulses and progression of the Martha Graham ballet that we have just watched. This is because the Cunningham upper back movements look very similar to the small pulses and the progression of ballet that Martha Graham's dancers were doing in the beginning of the video clip we just watched. We are now going to watch a video of the Merce Cunningham dancers doing a basic technique class.
The video you are about to see is an introduction to a number of the elements that comprise the basis of the Cunningham technique for dancers, as given in the Westbeth studio in New York. It is not meant to show the range of the technique, but to illustrate certain of the basic movements in as clear and straightforward a manner as possible. The daily class begins standing upright, the 2 feet parallel to each other and close together to assume the slender but firm support the legs must give a moving body. The first exercises concentrate on the stretching and curving and arching of the back, with simple additions in the legs and feet and the arms used sparingly. These exercises are intended to make the back alive from the base of the spine, where the spinal column joins the legs, continuing up into and through the head, and by extension, although not emphasized on the elementary level, through the arms. The back bends and straightens and later arches, tilts and curves from this deep base in the lower spine. The hips and legs are held, not released, in order to allow the back to curve forward, but held, so any movement of the spine will be done on the muscular system and not by shifting the balance in the joints. This exercise, here first shown in parallel position, then in the open second position, is a stretching of the back from a held position in the legs without giving way in the hips.
In this video, we can see that the Cunningham technique consists of upper back curves, tilts, pliés, and the talk of parallel position. The parallel position is very important to the Cunningham technique because it is meant to be only the width of your hips. Any wider or smaller would be considered incorrect. The dancers are also travelling on linear pathways and seen as very emotionless with straight faces. Cunningham dancers utilise their torsos bending sideways, forward and backward, and holds flexibility balances for a long time. This portrays Cunningham's dancers as strong, held, with a balance of flexibility. Moving on, we are now going to look at the Merce Cunningham technique in action as we talk about one of his works, channels/inserts. The costuming for this piece is everyday clothing, for example jumpers, leggings, knitwear and regular trousers, alongside no visual design for the set staging. The staging is very plain as it is what looks to be a very regular everyday corridor and a very plain studio/stage space. The music choice is following the theme of everyday as we can hear wind, popping, rain and white noise. The dancers are emotionless and keeping a straight face the entire time, following the movement and the original dance idea. The entire idea of the movement is very plain and simple, mimicking everyday life. We will now be looking into another professional work that Cunningham produced. We will now be looking into the work Ocean. The costuming for this piece is long sleeve/leg unitards, with some of the dancers wearing dress-like mesh chiffon pieces of fabric that go over the top of the unitard, usually matching the colour of the unitard. The unitards are either 2 different colours that complement each other, for example red and orange or blue and teal, or a completely solid colour. The original idea is designed by John Cage. His idea was to have a circular stage with no front, the dancers not facing the back, technically always the front. The music is light and never ending, with a light sounding of a tambourine every so often. The orchestra was dotted around the audience away from each other. They were able to keep in time through a big clock that was on the stage, which would make sure they were all playing the correct notes. Speaking of the music in this Cunningham piece, we are now going to dive into the involvement that John Cage had with Merce Cunningham. They began their collaboration and friendship from the 1940s all the way up until John Cage's death. John Cage was an American composer and music theorist. He was born on the 5th of September 1912 and died on the 12th of August 1992, making him 72 when he passed. They had worked together for 52 long years, which was most of John Cage's life. John Cage was the musical director, Rauschenberg the decor and the costume designer for the Merce Cunningham Dance Company from 1953, as soon as it opened, working there for 39 years. Even after John Cage had died, Cunningham continued to use his music in his events to honour him and keep his memory alive. Merce Cunningham was influential in many ways. He had worked with many famous/well-known people, choreographers, dancers, musicians, and fashion designers. He is also a many-sided artist, meaning that he varied in many different areas of artistry, including film, which we know from him wanting to be an actor before studying modern dance, music, visual art. He was also a fierce collaborator, chance taker, and teacher. However, although being known for many types of forms of artistry, he is mostly known for his dance style/technique and choreography. Even though he may have died 15 years ago and his company have stopped touring and performing, students of the 21st century and many other dance schools are still learning about Merce Cunningham and learning about his technique academically and physically. On that note, this concludes my presentation on Merce Cunningham. I hope you enjoyed watching and thank you for listening.